Very much. Thank you, Eileen. You good? You having a good night?
Yeah, really good.
Well, I'm very happy that he was my first director, obviously. He taught me a lot of things like life and energy and scripts, and the way he directs is so interesting, and his humour is so unique and clever. And I'm very happy that he was my first director. Well, it's creative, it's unique, there's a bit of comedy, there's a lot of serious and sadness, and it's all-rounded interesting and shows a different side of the war. I felt very fortunate because they helped me to act and they taught me, and without them I would have been like standing there like that. So I'm very.
Well, I think it's got a really, really important story to tell, and it tells that story and that piece of history in such a unique way that I think, in a different perspective, that I think will really speak to people and help the world see, you know, World War II and so on and so forth from a different perspective and in a different way. And it's such an important reminder these days to people of what has happened in the past and what cannot be repeated in the future. So that's kind of what attracted me at first, and working with Tyke and everybody as well. Just so much fun. It just felt like we were playing all day, and I don't know, it was so beautiful working with Roman, and amazing watching him be so like emotionally mature, and there was so much sensitivity coming out of such a 10-year-old kid. It's like crazy, and it was so much fun. Yeah, she's got a really, really tough story, and she's going through a really hard time, and I really wanted to show, and Taika and everyone, and wanted to show the strong and brave and staunch side of her, and to let that shine through. And like I said before, it's just so important to me that people know about what has happened, and are reminded of such a disgustingly devastating impact it had on people like Elsa, and yeah.
The script was so fantastic. It was really just, it's unusual to read a script and have such a unique perspective and just a really different story. I was really struck by that, and I was a big fan of Taika's. I knew him a little bit just from kind of the whole Marvel world, and we had some friends in common. And then I'd heard about this script that was out there that was just supposed to be so extraordinary, and it was exceptional, and that's what actually drew me to this film was the script. And I think the film is really so touching, and there's such humanity in it. It felt like if anybody could make this film, it would be Taika, because he's incredibly sensitive and soulful, and I think he uses humor as a way to really kind of draw in the audience so that we can actually have a moment of reflection. It's really just incredibly clever, and I hope audiences love it as much as we do.
Well, it's just really a really inventive idea, very unique film, poignant and funny and beautiful, yeah.
Why do you think it is so interesting to tell this story through the eyes of a 10-year-old boy?
I think it's the perfect way to tell the story. I think it's a really ingenious way to a new angle on it, yeah. Taika's he's incredible. He's very unique. There's something really special about Taika. Yeah, he wrote, directed, and starred in it. He's.
Well, I felt like I'd seen most of the films I'd seen that deal with the experiences of World War II on both sides of the picture. It was very serious, and while I've always loved those films and been really affected by them, and they've changed me, I feel like we're going to have to retell these stories and keep reminding each other and other people what happened and what not to do in the future. Then we have to find new and more inventive ways of doing it, and I think that's why I chose to add lightness and a bit more comedy and sort of change up the way that we tell those stories. But also, I was really happy with the way the character turned out. It was more fun for me to play a more of a buffoon version of him, even though he probably was a bit of a buffoon. But it's as an imaginary Hitler conjured from the mind of a boy is way more fun than me actually trying to play the actual guy. Yeah, well, we have to start with Roman, who plays Jojo. He's an incredible kid. He's absolutely dream and a sweetheart, and very, very sensitive, which is all the qualities that I think if you're trying to humanize, someone on the German side during the war, you have to find actors that actually have those qualities, and he does. He has it in spades. He's just an absolutely wonderful person. And then all the rest of the cast, obviously, their experience and the history of what they've done speaks for itself.
Well, as Taika himself says, he's seen a lot of war movies. He's seen a lot of war movies, actually, funnily enough, from the sort of child's point of view from the Allies side, but less so from the German side of things. And I think, Taika's got an amazing kind of childlike spirit anyway, and I think he taps into that childlike sort of wonderment and naivety. And I think he could really get into the brain of this young boy who is being conditioned, if you like, by adults to have these sickening Nazi beliefs, and the journey of this boy in a kind of growing up and realizing the sort of error of his ways is a really beautiful, brave, funny, and I think ultimately very emotional story. I was really dazzled with what he did. Well, I think there's an unfortunate truth, which is that stories about prejudice and about groupthink and about ignorance are always relevant. I mean, it's a sad state of sort of human affairs. And yes, there's been a more recent rise of sort of, far-right thinking and populism and, if you like, fascistic, people, particularly across Europe. But I think it's always an ongoing thing. And I think this is a story to me which is a kind of constant reminder of just the sort of common humanity of people, and we can it's so easy to sort of become stuck in our own little bubbles, left or right, and I think this is a useful reminder of sort of, empathizing with other people, seeing other people for who they are. I think it's a really heartening and sadly always relevant tale that needs to be told. You know what, I'm a long-standing fan of not just Taika, but of kind of satirical comedy that plays with big ideas and does it in a funny way. And I think, he's tapping it to me into a tradition of movies mocking and satirizing Hitler and fascism right back to the war itself with the great dictator Chaplin's film. There's a great classic, To Be or Not to Be, which is playful, famously, of course, The Producers with Mel Brooks. And I think there's a sort of long-standing tradition of using satire to undermine these people, because there's one thing that fascists and dictators hate, and it's being laughed at. They can't bear it because it undermines the one thing they have, which is fear. And I think when you sort of dismantle that, it makes you incredibly powerful. It's very exciting.
Well, first of all, Taika Waititi is he's a genius. But yeah, it was just a fantastic opportunity for me to be able to kind of go and do something completely different that I'd never done before, and also the kind of you know, Taika definitely has his blueprint in his script of what he wants you to do, but at the same time he's very giving, and he kind of just lets you flow with it. And so it was just a joy. It was great. I would best describe it as a course in, you know, it's essentially kind of, you know, are these children who are kind of forced into being a version of what is Boy Scouts to us nowadays, running around with grenade launchers and knives in their belts. You know, this was real. This is something that was actually happening. And so were they inherently evil, or were they just kind of influenced by, you know, especially Jojo's character not having a father figure, and he finds it in this imaginary version of Taika, the character that Taika is playing. So yeah, it's a funny thing in terms of content for it to be so touching, but it really is.
FuturePreviews.com. Whoa! Go behind the scenes of movies. Subscribe to Future Flicks YouTube channel.